The calm of Station Halcyon was broken one morning by a sudden blaring alarm. Red lights flashed across the corridors, echoing through the bustling market sectors and repair docks. Lyria was in the middle of tightening a panel when she felt the vibrations under her feet. "What is happening?" she asked, glancing around at the panicked crew. Ethan appeared beside her, already running toward the central control hub. "Reactor malfunction," he said grimly. "If we don't stabilize it, the entire station could suffer catastrophic failure." Lyria's heart pounded. She had heard of accidents before, ships blown apart by careless engineering, stations destroyed by malfunctions, but now it was real. And she was right in the middle of it. "We have to help," she said, determination hardening in her chest. "We can't just stand here," Ethan nodded. "Then let's move. I'll follow your lead." The control hub was chaos. Engineers of multiple species worked frantically, checking systems and issuing commands. Sparks flew as damaged consoles shorted out, smoke curling toward the ceiling vents. Lyria knelt beside one panel, examining the glowing, erratic readings. "The secondary core is unstable," she shouted. "If the containment fails, it could spread to the main reactor." Ethan moved quickly to her side. "I see it. We need to reroute the energy flow manually. It's dangerous, but we don't have a choice." Without hesitation, Lyria followed his instructions. Her fingers moved over switches and conduits with a precision she had never known she possessed. Ethan guided her, keeping a steady voice and calm demeanor. And for the first time, she felt like she was not just surviving, she was making a difference. Minutes felt like hours as they worked together. Alien engineers ran past them, carrying tools and data pads, shouting urgent instructions. Sparks leapt from damaged consoles and the air was thick with tension. "You're doing fine," Ethan encouraged. "Keep going, almost there." Lyria's hands were steady despite the chaos. She adjusted a panel, rerouted a conduit, and pressed the final button that stabilized the secondary core. A hiss of steam and the glow of the panel turning green signaled success. The immediate danger passed, but there was no time to rest. The main reactor was still unstable and they had to act quickly. Ethan turned to Lyria. "We can do this together. I'll handle the calculations. You follow my lead on the circuits." She nodded, her fear replaced by focus. For the first time, she understood what true partnership meant. It was not about rank, wealth, or title. It was about trust, communication, and shared courage. Together, they moved through the corridors leading to the reactor chamber. The heat was intense and alarms blared in their ears, but neither hesitated. Inside the chamber, the reactor glowed ominously, energy arcs leaping across its surface. The alien engineers on site stepped back, overwhelmed by the sudden surge. "Lyria, we need to stabilize the output," Ethan shouted over the noise. She worked quickly, connecting circuits and redirecting power as he instructed. Sparks danced dangerously close to her face, but she didn't falter. Her hands moved with precision and confidence she didn't know she had. Hours seemed to pass in moments. Lyria and Ethan moved as one, anticipating each other's actions without needing to speak. The alien engineers watched in awe, some whispering about the courage of the human and the alien princess working together. Finally, with one final adjustment, the reactor stabilized. The red alarms turned to a steady green, and the tension in the chamber dissolved into relief. Engineers cheered, clapping each other on the back and exchanging grateful nods. Ethan smiled at Lyria, wiping sweat from his brow. "We did it," he said simply. Lyria exhaled, feeling the adrenaline fade. "We did it," she repeated, her voice full of wonder. For the first time, she felt truly powerful, not because of a title or family, but because of what she could accomplish through courage and partnership. News of their success spread quickly. The station media broadcasted the story across the sectors. A human and an alien princess had stabilized a failing reactor, saving thousands of lives. The reactions were mixed. Some were shocked. How could a human and an alien princess work together so effectively? Others were inspired, praising their courage and teamwork. Across multiple worlds, beings began discussing the importance of trust, respect, and partnership over social rank and tradition. Lyria and Ethan became symbols of a new idea, that bravery, honesty, and collaboration could overcome prejudice and fear. Even Lyria's family heard the news. Her mother's messages were sharp but softened by the undeniable success. "You survived this crisis," her mother wrote. "Your actions cannot be ignored. But remember, you are still a princess. Do not let personal choices ruin your future." Her father's tone was similar. "You have demonstrated capability and courage. Perhaps we judged you too harshly. But proceed carefully. Your decisions affect many." Lyria read the messages and smiled softly. She did not need their approval to know her worth. But hearing even a hint of recognition warmed her heart. Ethan and Lyria spent the evening together on the observation deck, watching ships glide past the station. The stars sparkled like diamonds against the dark void, and the city lights of the station reflected in their eyes. "You know," Ethan said quietly, "I've worked with many people in my life. I've never met someone as brave and determined as you. You didn't just survive this, you led when others hesitated. You have a rare gift." Lyria's cheeks warmed.
"I only did what needed to be done," she replied humbly. "But
"It was easier because you were there guiding me." Ethan smiled. "That's what partners do. We help each other." She looked at him, a thought forming in her mind, the same thought that had been growing for weeks, a question that could change both their lives. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice almost trembling. I want to ask you something." He turned to her, curious. "Yes?" Lyria took a deep breath. If you are willing, I want us to be more than just friends or partners in work. I want to be with you. Officially. I want to build a life together, side by side, facing whatever comes. Will you be my husband?" Ethan's eyes widened, but this time there was no fear or hesitation, only admiration and respect. He had seen her courage, her intelligence, her kindness, and he knew that her proposal was sincere, not impulsive. "Lyria," he said after a moment, I don't know what the galaxy will think. I don't know what my people or your family will say. But I do know this, I want to stand with you. I want to face the future with you no matter what. Yes, I will be your husband." Tears of joy filled Lyria's eyes. She had dared to ask, to risk everything, and now, at last, she had an answer. In the following days, the station celebrated their courage and teamwork. Humans and aliens alike praised their actions, sharing stories of the princess and the engineer who had saved the station. Lyria and Ethan continued to work together, side by side, not only on repairs but on projects that improved the lives of others. They had proven their worth not just to each other but to the galaxy. Lyria no longer felt the sting of rejection or the shadow of doubt. She had found her place not because of a title or wealth, but because she had dared to be honest, courageous and true. And beside her, Ethan stood, ready to face every challenge with her, their partnership a beacon of hope and courage in a galaxy that had once rejected them both. Ethan Cole floated alone in the small shuttle, staring out at the giant shadow that filled his view. The alien ship was massive, larger than any human vessel he had ever seen. Its dark frame stretched like a sleeping beast across the stars, its hull cracked and scarred from battles long forgotten. Lights were dead. Engines cold. To most eyes, it was nothing but wreckage drifting at the edge of known space. But Ethan knew better. The Galactic Council had marked this ship as dead metal, abandoned and stripped of value. Still, whispers had spread among scavengers, rumors of secret cores, hidden chambers, and treasures worth entire fleets. The Council sent no soldiers, no officers. They sent Ethan, a simple human engineer, because humans were often the ones willing to take risks others would not. Alone again, Ethan muttered, his voice echoing inside his helmet. He powered the shuttle toward the broken hangar bay. Metal claws of the alien structure reached out like frozen fingers, waiting to pull him inside. The shuttle landed with a soft bump. He unstrapped himself, grabbed his toolkit, and stepped out. His boots touched the deck with a hollow clang. The air inside the alien hangar was thin but breathable. He checked his wrist scanner. Oxygen low but enough to survive. He moved forward. The corridors were silent, walls etched with alien markings he could not read. Each turn of his light revealed dust, broken panels, and the skeleton of a once proud warship. Strange shapes of doors curved like wings, and wide windows showed the endless stars outside. At first, it felt lifeless, dead. But Ethan had been on many derelicts before, and something about this one was different. The air was warmer than expected. The lights on his scanner blinked with strange energy pulses. Somewhere deep inside, systems were still alive. "This isn't dead metal," he whispered. He kept walking, footsteps echoing. His ears caught faint sounds, the hum of machinery like breathing beneath the walls. It made his skin crawl, yet his curiosity pulled him deeper. He entered a grand chamber. The walls were high, reaching far above him, glowing faintly with alien crystal veins. In the center stood a circular platform, surrounded by empty stasis pods. Most were cracked open, glass shattered. He stepped carefully, scanning. Then he froze. Someone was watching him. At the far end of the chamber stood a figure, tall and still. His beam of light caught smooth armor, elegant and sharp, etched with royal patterns. A face appeared from the shadows, delicate features, silver eyes glowing faintly, and long hair that shimmered like starlight. An alien woman. Not just any alien. She carried herself with grace and strength, her presence commanding the space like she owned it. Ethan felt his heart pound. He had thought he was alone, but here was someone alive, someone who had been waiting. The woman's eyes narrowed. She spoke in a language Ethan could not understand, her voice sharp yet calm. Her hand hovered near a strange device on her wrist, ready to call power if she needed. Ethan raised both hands slowly. "I'm not here to fight. Just an engineer human, do you understand?" She tilted her head, studying him. Then, to his surprise, she answered in rough but clear English. "A human here? Impossible." Her voice was soft yet carried authority. She stepped closer, eyes never leaving his. Ethan saw her armor was cracked in places, showing she had endured struggle. "I thought this ship was empty," Ethan said carefully. "No life signs were reported." "You are wrong," she replied. "I am here, and now you are too." There was silence between them. The air felt heavy, filled with questions. Ethan finally asked, "Who are you?" The woman straightened, her expression proud. "I am Serenia, daughter of the High Queen of Luthera, Princess of the Star Thrones." Ethan blinked. A princess, on a ghost ship, alone. It sounded like a story out of old legends, not something real. "Why are you here?" he asked, her silver eyes hardened. "Because my people betrayed me. My ship was taken. My guard abandoned me, and now strangers walk my halls." Ethan felt a pang of sympathy, though he kept his guard. "I didn't come to hurt you. I was sent to salvage, nothing more." "Salvage?" Serenia's voice grew sharp, filled with offense. "This is not scrap. This is the royal flagship of Luthara. Its heart still beats. And you dare call it salvage?" Ethan raised his hands again, calm. "I'm only telling you what I was told. But I believe you. This ship doesn't feel dead. It feels alive." That answer seemed to soften her gaze. She studied him longer, as if trying to measure the truth of his words. Finally, she lowered her hand from the wrist device. "You are bold for a human," she said. "Most would have run when they saw me." Ethan gave a faint smile. "Running is not really my job. Fixing broken things is." The corners of her lips almost curved, though pride kept her face firm. She stepped past him, placing her hand against the crystal walls. The chamber glowed faintly under her touch, as if recognizing her presence. Ethan watched in awe as light spread across the walls, veins of energy flowing outward. The ship responded to her, awakening from its long slumber. Systems hummed, lights flickered, and the floor vibrated beneath their feet. "You see?" Serenia said, her voice softer now. "It knows me. It remembers who I am. This is no tomb, human. This is a throne." Ethan stood quietly, realizing the truth. The council had lied. This wasn't dead metal. This was power. Dangerous power. And now he was caught in the middle of something far bigger than salvage. Serenia turned back to him, her gaze piercing. "Tell me, human, why should I let you live when you have seen what no outsider should ever see?" Ethan swallowed, his mind racing. He was just an engineer, not a warrior. But something inside him refused to back down. "Because," he said slowly, "I can help. You say your ship is alive, but it's broken. I fix broken things. If you want it strong again, you're going to need me." The princess stood silent, her silver eyes locked on him. For a long moment nothing moved. Then at last she gave a single nod. "Very well, human," she said. "We will see if your words carry truth. But know this, if you betray me, this ship will not be your grave. I will make certain of that myself." Ethan nodded back, steady. "Fair enough." As they stood together in the awakening chamber, the silence of the ship faded into a low, steady hum. The flagship was no longer a tomb. It was alive again. And so was the bond that had just begun between a human engineer and an alien princess. The warning tone continued, sharp and insistent. vibrating through the floor beneath Ethan's boots. He looked up at Serenia, whose silver eyes were focused on the displays of the royal flagship. "They're close," she said, her voice calm but edged with tension. "The mutineers are returning. They intend to take this ship by force." Ethan's hands instinctively moved to his toolkit. "How many ships are we talking about?" Serenia tapped the spire, the alien symbols flickering as they translated roughly into numbers and positions. 3 warships, all heavily armed. They expect the flagship to be abandoned. They will not expect us. Ethan swallowed hard. He had repaired derelict ships before, but facing armed enemy vessels was another matter entirely. Still, he felt the familiar spark, the thrill of problem-solving under pressure. "We need to bring more systems online," he said, moving to a nearby console. "Weapons, shields, engines, whatever we can." Serenia watched him work, a mixture of skepticism and curiosity in her gaze. "Do you understand our systems?" she asked. "I understand circuits, energy flows, and problem-solving," Ethan replied. "Your systems are different, but I can figure it out." She studied him for a long moment. "Your kind is reckless." "Maybe," he said, smiling faintly. "Or maybe we just think differently." She didn't answer. Instead, she placed her hands on the spire again, and the ship responded. Lights along the corridors glowed brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. Hatches opened automatically, and energy coursed through conduits that had been silent for decades. Ethan knelt at a console, his fingers moving quickly across alien controls. His scanners picked up the power flow through the ship's core. "The heart is weak," he muttered. "But if I reroute some of this energy, we can activate defensive systems." "Do it," Serenia commanded. Working together, they became a rhythm. She guided him where the ship's architecture was too complex for human intuition alone. He suggested human improvisation, wiring circuits in ways alien engineers would never consider. Slowly, the flagship began to awaken. First, the lights came fully online, filling the chamber with a soft glow. The hum of engines grew stronger, vibrating through the floors and walls. Shields flickered, weak but present, forming a thin protective bubble around the vessel. Weapons bays opened automatically, revealing sleek energy cannons that had been silent for decades. Serenia's eyes shone with a mixture of awe and relief. "You are remarkable," she said quietly. Ethan chuckled. "I just follow the flow. Broken things tell you what they need if you listen." For a moment, the tension lifted. The flagship no longer felt like a tomb. It pulsed with life, ready to defend its princess. But there was no time to admire the work. Sensors beeped urgently, showing the mutineer ships approaching faster than expected. "They'll be here in minutes," Ethan said, scanning the alien readouts. "We need to prepare." Serenia's face hardened. "Then we fight. This ship is my birthright, and I will not surrender it. Not to them, not to anyone." Ethan nodded. "I'll help you. But we need a plan." The princess gestured toward the battle maps displayed on the spire. "We cannot outrun them. Our engines are too weak for full speed. But we can defend this sector. We know these corridors better than they do." Ethan studied the maps. "We can use the ship's structure to our advantage," he said. "Set traps. Force them into narrow passages where our cannons have more effect. I can also rig emergency systems to redirect power if needed." Serenia's eyes lit with approval. "You have the mind of a strategist, human. Then we shall combine our strengths, your cleverness and my command." As the mutineer ships drew closer, the royal flagship thrummed with life. Energy crackled along the hull, shields humming like a living heartbeat. Ethan moved from station to station, rerouting power, sealing weak points, and ensuring the weapons were online. Serenia paced the command platform, issuing orders to systems that responded instantly to her touch. Her voice was clear and commanding, and the ship obeyed her every word. Minutes passed like hours. Then the first mutineer vessel appeared on the viewports, sleek and menacing, engines glowing with deadly intent. Ethan could feel the tension in the air. "They expect an empty ship," Serenia said. "They do not know it still breathes." Ethan grinned faintly. "Then we give them a welcome they won't forget." The enemy ship fired first. Energy blasts ripped across the void, striking the flagship's shields. Sparks flew along the hull and alarms blared. Serenia pressed her hands to the spire, directing power to shields while guiding the flagship into evasive maneuvers. Ethan's hands flew across the consoles, rerouting energy to weapons bays and defensive systems. "Cannon systems online," he reported, shields holding at 50%. We can fight back, the princess nodded. Good. Then fire at will. Energy cannons roared, blasting the mutineer vessel. Explosions rippled across the enemy hull, throwing debris into space. But 2 more ships were still approaching, faster than they could anticipate. Ethan's mind raced. We need more traps, he said. I can use the ship's old systems. Venting energy through corridors, redirecting power to doors, even using gravity systems to slow them down. Serenia studied him carefully. Your ideas are unconventional, but we have no choice. Do it. Working quickly, Ethan rigged traps and redirected energy flows. The flagship's corridors became a deadly maze, ready to confuse and damage any enemy who dared board. Minutes later, the mutineers engaged directly. Boarding crafts were launched, attempting to infiltrate the flagship. Ethan monitored the corridors, flipping switches to trigger his traps at the right moments. The first boarding craft passed through a narrow passage, and energy beams shot from the walls, forcing it back into open space. Explosions rocked the enemy vessel, scattering debris across the void. Serenia's voice rang through the chambers, clear and strong. Hold the line. Protect the ship. The second craft attempted a different route. Ethan's quick thinking redirected gravity fields, sending it spinning away uncontrollably. Sparks and debris flew as the enemy struggled to regain control. Serenia moved to the command platform, activating energy cannons. She guided the flagship with precision, firing at every enemy craft that ventured too close. Her presence alone commanded the ship, and the systems responded instantly to her touch. Ethan glanced at her, impressed despite the chaos. You really do have a connection with this ship, he said. Serenia gave a small nod, her focus never leaving the battle. It is my birthright. It recognizes me, just as I recognize it. The final enemy vessel approached the flagship's port side. Ethan's scanners showed it was heavily armed, but its approach was predictable. I can set a trap, he said. We can force it into the corridor I just rigged. Serenia considered, then nodded. Do it. I trust your judgment. Energy flowed through the corridors as Ethan activated his improvised systems. The enemy ship followed the path he had prepared, unaware of the danger. As it entered the narrow passage, blasts of energy shot from the walls, tearing into the hull. The ship spun wildly, unable to escape. Serenia fired the flagship's cannons with precision, finishing the attack. The mutineer vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light, leaving only debris in the void. The remaining ships, seeing their companion destroyed and realizing the flagship was alive and defended, began to retreat. Alarms continued to blare, but the immediate threat had passed. Ethan sank into a nearby chair, breathing heavily. We did it. For now. Serenia stood beside him, her expression both proud and thoughtful. You were clever, human. Most would have panicked. You turned weakness into strength. Ethan shook his head. I just fixed what was broken. That's all. She looked out at the void where the last mutineer ships were disappearing. This ship is more than machines and metal, she said softly. It is a part of my life, my people, my history. And now with you, it may yet survive. Ethan felt a sense of awe. He had come to this ghost ship expecting salvage and danger, but he had found something far greater. A living vessel, a royal princess, and a challenge that tested everything he knew. The flagship had awakened, and so had their partnership, an unlikely human engineer and an alien princess, standing together against threats that neither could face alone. The flagship settled into a quiet rhythm after the mutineer attack. Alarms still echoed faintly, and the lights pulsed like a heartbeat. Ethan leaned against a console, breathing heavily. Every part of him ached, but his mind was alert, already planning the next steps. Serenia stood beside the command spire, watching the stars outside. Her silver eyes reflected both concern and determination. They will return, she said softly. And next time they will not come empty-handed. Ethan nodded. I know, but we've seen what this ship can do when it's alive. We just need to make it stronger, faster. She turned to him, her gaze sharp yet thoughtful. You seem fearless, human. Most of your kind would have fled when the first ships attacked. I've never been one to run, Ethan said, shrugging. I fix things. I figure things out. Panic doesn't help. Serenia considered him carefully. You are different from the humans I've heard of. Clever, persistent, not reckless as I first thought. Ethan gave a small smile. I'll take that as a compliment coming from a princess. She allowed a faint smile in return, though pride quickly reclaimed her face. This ship, it is more than metal. It is my heritage, and now it is your responsibility as well if you wish it. Ethan straightened. Responsibility is fine. I didn't come here to die, I came to solve problems. And this ship is the biggest problem I've ever seen. They moved through the corridors together, inspecting the systems Ethan had partially repaired. Panels flickered, conduits hummed, and light flowed in patterns that had been silent for decades. Serenia's hand on a console would awaken power, while Ethan's human ingenuity rerouted it to make systems more efficient. You humans think in ways my people do not, she said, watching him work. Your improvisation. It is crude yet effective. Crude can be good, Ethan said, grinning. It gets results. She shook her head, though a small laugh escaped her lips. I did not expect to laugh today. Perhaps there is more to your kind than I imagined. As they worked, the princess began to reveal parts of her life. She told Ethan about her childhood on Luthera, the rigorous training, the lessons in diplomacy and combat. She spoke of her people, the pride they carried, and the betrayals that had left her stranded. Ethan listened quietly, fascinated. He had never met anyone like her, someone who bore the weight of an entire people on her shoulders yet still moved with elegance and strength. You have carried this burden alone for too long, he said finally. You don't have to anymore. I can help. Serenia studied him for a moment. Help? Yes, perhaps, but trust is not easily given, human, especially not after betrayal. I understand, he said sincerely. Trust is earned, and I intend to earn it. For hours they moved through the ship together, checking energy flows, weapon systems, and shields. Ethan adjusted circuits in ways alien engineers would never have considered, rerouting power to stabilize weak spots. Serenia guided him, showing which systems were critical and which could be improvised. The flagship began to feel alive again, humming steadily with energy. Its weapons bays opened fully, shields glimmered stronger, and engines pulsed with renewed strength. The once-abandoned vessel was now a fortress in space. During a pause, Serenia led Ethan to the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and the vastness of space reminded them how small their own lives were in comparison. You have done well, she said softly, her voice carrying both admiration and gratitude. This ship could have remained a tomb, but you helped awaken it. Ethan looked at her, feeling an unfamiliar sense of closeness. We did it together. I couldn't have done it alone. Her eyes met his, and for the first time her defenses seemed to lower. Perhaps you are not like the others. Perhaps there is more to your kind than I assumed. He smiled faintly. Maybe humans are full of surprises. Their moment was interrupted by a warning tone, smaller ships approaching the flagship from a distant quadrant. Ethan moved to the consoles immediately, analyzing the readouts. Scouts, he muttered. They're checking our defenses. They won't attack yet, but they're probing. Serenia's silver eyes narrowed. Then we must prepare. Every system must be ready. Every weapon, every corridor, every trap. Ethan nodded, already moving to adjust energy conduits. He rigged emergency protocols, set automated defenses, and created rerouted power channels to strengthen shields. The flagship was no longer just a relic. It was becoming a formidable fortress. As they worked, the two began to share more than just tasks. Ethan told her about his life on Earth, his simple beginnings, and his fascination with machinery. Serenia spoke of her responsibilities, her loneliness as heir to a throne, and the weight of expectation that came with it. Through these conversations, a bond began to form. Not romantic yet, but a deep mutual respect and understanding. They had faced danger together, and in that shared struggle, trust grew. Hours passed, and the stars outside began to shift with the movement of nearby fleets. Ethan took a moment to rest, leaning against a railing on the observation deck. Do you ever feel alone? He asked quietly. Serenia glanced at him. Always. Even among my people, I carry burdens they cannot understand. Even when I'm surrounded, I'm alone in responsibility. Ethan nodded. I know the feeling. Humans, we're not perfect, but we find ways to survive. And sometimes we find allies in the most unlikely places. She studied him, her expression thoughtful. Perhaps you are more than an ally. Perhaps you are a companion in this fight. Ethan shrugged. I'll take that. Companions are better than facing battles alone. The calm was short-lived. Sensors flashed, signaling movement outside the flagship's outer shields. Ethan scanned the readouts. The scouts are retreating. They must be reporting back. The main fleet will come soon. Serenya's face hardened. Then we have little time. We must use this window to strengthen our defenses and to prepare ourselves. This ship is alive, but it needs its captain and her engineer to survive the next battle. Ethan moved to his stations, hands flying over the controls. He rerouted energy to weapons, recalibrated shields, and prepared emergency countermeasures. Serenia oversaw the entire process, guiding him where necessary, but also making strategic decisions that would decide the fate of the flagship. As night stretched across the endless stars, the flagship pulsed with life. It had survived its first attack. And in its revival, a bond had formed between human and princess, a bond that went beyond mere survival. They were no longer strangers thrown together by chance. They were partners, facing impossible odds together. Serenia placed a hand on the observation deck railing, looking at Ethan. You have proven yourself, human. Perhaps I misjudged you. Ethan smiled faintly. I told you, fixing broken things is what I do. And you're something remarkable. Anyone would be lucky to fight alongside you. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. Then we will fight together, Ethan, for this ship, for my people, and for whatever future we can carve from the stars. And so, in the quiet aftermath of the first attack, the flagship settled into a rhythm of life. Its corridors no longer empty, its systems no longer silent. It was alive again. And within it, a human engineer and an alien princess had begun to form a partnership, one built on trust, ingenuity, and the shared will to survive against overwhelming odds. The next battle would come. The mutineers would return, stronger and more prepared. But for now, in the quiet hum of the awakened ship, Ethan and Serenia found a moment of peace, and a chance to prepare for the challenges ahead. The flagship thrummed with power as it floated silently in the void. Ethan moved from station to station, checking weapons, adjusting energy flows, and reinforcing weak points. Serenia stood on the command platform, her silver eyes scanning the stars for the approaching enemy fleet. They're coming, she said quietly, her voice carrying authority that made the ship itself seem to respond. Ethan nodded, fingers flying over the controls. I see them. 3 warships heavily armed. They expect an easy victory. They won't get one. Serenia's lips pressed together in determination. This ship is my legacy, and we will not let it fall. Minutes later, the mutineer fleet appeared on the horizon, glowing like predators in the darkness. Energy beams pulsed from their hulls, weapons charging. Ethan could feel the tension in the ship, the heartbeat of the flagship growing faster as if it knew battle was near. Shields at 60%, Ethan reported. Weapons are online, but we need to be careful. Their cannons are powerful, Serenia nodded. Then we use the ship to our advantage. We know the corridors, the weak points, the traps. They do not. The first enemy ship fired. Energy bolts streaked across the void, slamming into the flagship's shields with explosive force. Sparks flew along the hull and alarms blared. Ethan's fingers moved quickly, rerouting power to the shields and weapon systems, stabilizing the flagship's defenses. Serenia's voice rang out, clear and commanding. Engage weapons. Fire at will. Energy cannons roared to life. Blasts of concentrated plasma struck the first enemy vessel, tearing through its hull. Explosions rocked the mutineer ship, sending debris spinning into space. Ethan monitored the sensors, rerouting energy to strengthen shields at the point of impact. Shields holding at 70%, he said. We can keep this up. Serenia guided the flagship with precision, maneuvering through space like a predator stalking its prey. Their next move will be to board us. We must be ready. Ethan's mind raced. He had prepared traps and rerouted energy through the corridors. Gravity fields, energy barriers, and automated defenses were all in place. Now it was time to test them. The first boarding craft approached the flagship's port side. Ethan activated the trap sequences. Energy beams shot from the walls, forcing the craft back into open space. Explosions rocked the enemy vessel, throwing debris across the void. Serenia's voice rang through the chamber. Hold the line. Protect the ship. The second craft attempted a different route. Ethan redirected gravity fields, sending it spinning uncontrollably. Sparks and debris flew as the enemy struggled to regain control. Serenia moved to the command platform, activating the flagship's energy cannons. She guided the ship with precision, firing at every enemy craft that ventured too close. Her presence alone commanded the ship, and the systems responded instantly to her touch. Ethan glanced at her, impressed despite the chaos. "You really do have a connection with this ship," he said. Serenia gave a small nod, her focus never leaving the battle. "It is my birthright. It recognizes me, just as I recognize it." The final enemy vessel approached the flagship's port side. Ethan's scanners showed it was heavily armed, but its approach was predictable. "I can set a trap," he said. "We can force it into the corridor I just rigged." Serenia considered, then nodded. "Do it. I trust your judgment." Energy flowed through the corridors as Ethan activated his improvised systems. The enemy ship followed the path he had prepared, unaware of the danger. As it entered the narrow passage, blasts of energy shot from the walls, tearing into the hull. The ship spun wildly, unable to escape. Serenia fired the flagship's cannons with precision, finishing the attack. The mutineer vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light, leaving only debris in the void. The remaining ships, seeing their companion destroyed and realizing the flagship was alive and defended, began to retreat. Alarms continued to blare, but the immediate threat had passed. Ethan sank into a nearby chair, breathing heavily. "We did it. For now." Serenia stood beside him, her expression both proud and thoughtful. "You were clever, human. Most would have panicked. You turned weakness into strength." Ethan shook his head. "I just fixed what was broken. That's all." She looked out at the void, where the last mutineer ships were disappearing. "This ship is more than machines and metal," she said softly. "It is a part of my life, my people, my history. And now, with you, it may yet survive." Ethan felt a sense of awe. He had come to this ghost ship expecting salvage and danger, but he had found something far greater. A living vessel, a royal princess, and a challenge that tested everything he knew. Serenia turned to him, her silver eyes meeting his. "You have earned my trust, human. And perhaps my respect as well." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'll take that. Trust is earned, and respect is mutual." They spent the following hours reinforcing the ship, repairing damage from the battle, and monitoring the enemy fleet's retreat. The flagship hummed with renewed life, its corridors no longer silent, its systems responsive and strong. In the quiet moments they talked, not of strategy or weapons, but of themselves. Ethan shared stories of Earth, of human ingenuity, and of life as a simple engineer. Serenia spoke of her people, her training, and the responsibilities that weighed on her shoulders. Through these conversations, the bond between them deepened. They were no longer just allies in battle. They were partners, learning to trust and rely on each other in a universe that offered little forgiveness. As the stars shifted outside, marking the passage of time, Ethan realized something important. He had faced danger before, but never like this. Never had his skills, courage, and quick thinking been tested against enemies so determined and ruthless. And never had he met someone like Serenia, a princess not just in name but in strength, wisdom, and presence. "Do you think they'll return?" Ethan asked quietly, leaning against a console. "They will," Serenia said, her gaze fixed on the distant stars. "But now we are ready. The flagship is alive and we are not alone." Ethan looked at her, feeling a sense of pride he had never known. Together they had turned a broken ship into a fortress. Together they had survived an attack that would have destroyed lesser beings. And together, they would face whatever came next. The flagship pulsed with life, its systems glowing like a heartbeat in the dark void. And within it, two unlikely companions, a human engineer and an alien princess, stood ready to defend their ship, their lives and the future they had begun to shape together. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Yet in that moment, they allowed themselves a small measure of peace, knowing that they had faced impossible odds and emerged stronger. Ethan adjusted his toolkit and stood beside Serenia on the observation deck. "We've survived today, and we'll survive tomorrow too." Serenia's silver eyes met his, a spark of understanding passing between them. "Yes, human. Together we will endure, and the flagship will carry us through whatever awaits in the stars." For the first time, Ethan felt a true sense of belonging. He was no longer just a lone engineer on a forgotten ship. He was part of something greater, an alliance that had the power to change the course of the galaxy. And as the flagship drifted through the quiet expanse of space, repaired, alive, and ready, Ethan and Serenia prepared themselves for the battles yet to come, united by trust, skill, and the unbreakable bond forged in the fires of the first attack.